Warning: Carney's net zero plan debunked by 35-year expert in energy chemistry. Canada's net zero strategy, heavily promoted by influential figures like Mark Carney, has recently come under intense scrutiny from experts in the energy field who challenge both the feasibility and sincerity of its core components. Central to this plan are ambitious projects focusing on decarbonized oil and the widespread adoption of green hydrogen as clean alternatives, along with heavy investments in carbon capture technologies. However, a chemist with 35 years of hands-on experience in energy chemistry exposes deep flaws in these approaches, raising serious doubts about their practicality and the true motivations behind them. One of the primary pillars of this strategy is the enthusiastic endorsement of green hydrogen as a revolutionary clean energy source capable of transforming Canada's energy landscape. Green hydrogen, produced by splitting water molecules using renewable electricity, is widely touted as a way to decarbonize industries, transportation, and heating. Media interviews and public discussions have elevated this technology as a symbol of a sustainable future. Yet, beneath the optimistic surface lies a critical problem. The entire green hydrogen process is markedly inefficient and demands an enormous amount of energy. The production of green hydrogen is extremely energy-intensive. According to expert analysis, approximately 50 kilowatt-hours of electricity are needed to produce a single kilogram of hydrogen through electrolysis. When scaled up to meet global hydrogen demand, estimated at around 90 million tons annually, the energy requirement becomes staggering, totaling about 4,500 terawatt-hours. To put this in perspective, the entire world's electricity generation from wind and solar sources in 2019 was roughly half that amount, at 2,100 terawatt-hours. This means that even if all global renewable electricity was diverted exclusively to hydrogen production, it would fall far short of meeting the projected demand. Such figures underscore the impracticality of relying on green hydrogen as a scalable, near-term solution. This critical insight exposes a major disconnect between political rhetoric and technical realities. Despite the push for green hydrogen, it currently represents less than 1% of global hydrogen production. The vast majority, more than 99%, comes from fossil fuels, primarily natural gas, through processes that emit significant carbon dioxide. This disparity highlights the risk that green hydrogen initiatives are propelled more by financial incentives and policy trends than by actual environmental benefits. Compounding the problem is the widespread promotion of blue hydrogen, a variant produced from natural gas paired with carbon capture technologies to reduce carbon emissions. On paper, blue hydrogen appears to offer a transitional bridge towards cleaner energy. However, the process is riddled with economic and technical challenges. Carbon capture and storage, CCS, technologies are costly and not as effective as often claimed. The capture rate of carbon dioxide varies, and even under optimal conditions, a significant portion of emissions escapes into the atmosphere. Additionally, the energy required to operate carbon capture systems further diminishes the net environmental benefit. In practice, blue hydrogen may yield only marginal reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, calling into question its value as a climate solution. Financial dynamics play a pivotal role in shaping these energy initiatives. Large investment firms and corporate interests stand to gain enormously from the growing demand for renewable energy projects and carbon capture infrastructure. One prominent example is Brookfield Asset Management, a major player with extensive holdings in renewable energy assets globally, including wind farms and energy storage facilities. Mark Carney, who has been a vocal advocate for green finance and environmental initiatives, holds stock options in Brookfield. This intertwining of financial interests and policy advocacy raises significant ethical concerns. Critics argue that Carney and associates, including influential investors like Michael Moritz, may be leveraging their political and economic influence to direct government funding and regulatory support toward projects that primarily enrich private stakeholders rather than deliver tangible environmental benefits. One flagship government-supported initiative emblematic of this trend is the Pathways Alliance, a consortium focused on developing decarbonized oil from Alberta's oil sands. The alliance promotes a narrative that through carbon capture and other technological interventions, the the environmental footprint of oil sands extraction can be drastically reduced, positioning Canada as a leader in responsible energy production. Yet, the scientific and economic realities are more complicated. Oil sands extraction remains one of the most carbon-intensive forms of energy production globally. While carbon capture can theoretically reduce emissions, its implementation is costly, technologically challenging, and has yet to demonstrate scalability or consistent success at the required levels. The net effect is that claims of achieving carbon neutrality through this approach remain highly contested and, in some cases, appear overly optimistic. Canada's unique energy profile adds nuance to this debate. The country already benefits from a relatively clean electricity grid compared to many others, thanks largely to abundant hydroelectric power and cleaner-burning natural gas. This existing infrastructure has positioned Canada as a comparatively low-carbon emitter on the world stage. The expert argues that rather than investing billions into nascent, inefficient, and uncertain technologies like green hydrogen and carbon capture, Canada would be better served by maximizing the efficient use of its natural resources. Expanding responsible production and export of natural gas and oil to meet growing global demand could contribute to energy security and economic prosperity, provided that environmental protections remain robust and innovation continues. Political and regulatory hurdles further complicate Canada's energy transition. In particular, opposition to pipeline development in British Columbia, largely driven by provincial leaders such as Premier David Eby, has stalled vital infrastructure projects. These pipelines are crucial for transporting Canadian oil and gas to both domestic and international markets. The expert calls for more cooperative efforts between provinces to reconcile environmental concerns with economic realities, emphasizing that a unified, pragmatic approach is essential to ensure Canada remains competitive in the global energy market. Additionally, the regulatory framework governing emissions and project approvals has been criticized for inconsistency and lack of clarity. Calls for revisiting emissions caps and streamlining approval processes aim to strike a balance between protecting the environment, respecting Indigenous rights, and enabling energy development. The current federal government faces accusations of prioritizing political convenience and ideological positions over practical outcomes that would benefit Canadians broadly. Critics urge greater transparency, accountability, and a focus on clear, evidence-based criteria to guide energy policies and investments.